Hey, you busy? Mm-mm. Okay, let me run something past you real quick. I think more than ever, what we need to do in this society is truly work on our character because we are so busy praying about things that we want in the future that we are not paying attention to see if the character we presently have will support what we're praying for. This is why when people get whatever they're praying for, whether it's money and opportunity, a career path, entrepreneurship, a spouse, a child, it kind of seems like they get there and it looks like they don't look different. Their external situation may look different, but they themselves just look like, you still look like the same immature person, just with a lot of money now. You still look like the dude who cheats, but now you just got a ring on. You still look like the person that's just scamming or whatever, but now you're doing it in the entrepreneurship under the LLC. Like, you still look like what you've looked like, but your external looks different. And that's not how I believe God wants to bless us. I believe he wants to bless us from the inside out first. This is why it says in Romans 12, he wants to change you to a new creation by renewing your mind. And it's disheartening to see that there is such an incline on the lack of integrity. You got to really watch out for who's scamming, who's truthful, who's really the wolf in sheep clothing. And it's not just like it's a sphere of influence. It's not like, okay, be careful for those lawyers, be careful for those nurses, be careful for, it's almost everywhere. It's like, you got to play Marco Polo in the spirit to truly identify who's really about that life for real, who's really anointed by God to do what they said they're going to do, who is trustworthy, who can you lean on, who can you get true knowledge from without their hand being in your back pocket for real. Like, at what point is this a purpose rather than you going after somebody's purse? Like, at some point, we have to be able to be so strong in our discernment that we don't be set off or derailed by people who don't have our best interests at heart. And I guess it looks weird to see that the only way that people get justice after years of abuse of some sort, lawsuits when it comes to celebrities, you got to take people to civil court. You have to, it's like at some point, most of this could possibly be decrease in some kind of way if we just increased in discernment. And forgive me, am fired up because I feel like this is exactly what God was telling us. He was like, be careful. I am sending you out there like sheep amongst wolves, okay? But I want you to be as clever as a serpent and as innocent as a dove. Like, he's telling us all these things, and it sounds very poetic, and it sounds, oh, God, great. But when are we putting this into practice? Like, you cannot trust every coworker. You cannot trust everyone who has a great business idea. You can't partner with everyone that you think has your particular characteristics or your particular set of beliefs. You can't just pair yourself with anything because you will be deceived later. If you did not do your homework, you cannot skip leg day. And I'll tell you where some of this is coming from. I am getting to the point that I am no longer full off of appetizers. I need the entree. I need the meat and the potatoes. I'm no longer looking for more square footage. I'm no longer looking for more of anything. I am now entering the phase of my life where I want depth. I want to know that I'm getting more meaning, more revelation, more clarity, more peace, more. And what that is prompting me to do is pull back layers of things that I thought I just knew or things that I may have just read, just read through real quick. Now I'm starting to like savor and like, no, let's break down. When I'm eating something, I now want to know the ingredients. I want to know the origin. I want to know what am I ingesting so that for myself, I can safeguard against whatever it is in the future, because I feel like anything that we ever read, anything that we ever experience, what it truly should become is armor for our future. Oh, such and such did that. You know what? That was their experience. But I can pull some of the principles that they may have lacked in, or I can pull from the path that they decide to travel in, and I can safeguard myself. Like, we're really supposed to be pulling from the data of life. You have a customized, specified life experience that is different from one person to the other. And what you're supposed to be doing is collecting enough data to make sure that you have now the coordinates of, okay, so this is how I'm going to move. Outside of the Holy Spirit truly leading you, there are some things that you need to put into practice that comes from, okay, you've seen this before, you've read this before, you've heard this before, you've experienced this in some kind of way, and this is where this experience will be best utilized. Otherwise, you're just living day by day to do what? You clocking in and clocking out of work, clocking in and clocking out of life, of your family, to do what? If we are ultimately being led to the perfected purpose that God has for us, the plan that he discussed in Jeremiah, the thing that he created for us for in our mother's womb, if we are typically, what we're doing is we're being led to a promised land in whatever the sorts, a perfected purpose, a perfected will. And we need to know what to do along the way. When you look at the Israelites and how they were being led, there was a time that they were like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Because they heard Pharaoh and the chariots and the charioteers chasing them. Moses was like, don't be afraid. Who you see now, you're not going to see tomorrow. But really high key, he didn't know what to do. So then he went to God, and God was like, why are y'all crying to me? Tell the people to keep moving. Because at this point, now I don't even see it as like, oh God, that was kind of harsh. But my thing is, why would you stop what you've been doing? Y'all been moving all this time from Egypt. You had this mass exodus where he literally was like, don't go until I tell you to go. Take this unleavened bread, put the blood on the blood post, do all these other different things. And then you had a mass exodus as your release out of Egypt, to the point that y'all were pumping y'all fists in the air, and they were like, yo, it was a mass celebration while these Egyptians was in sorrow. So if you got your freedom from moving, why would you stop moving at the most opportune time? If God showed you how to get out of it, then continue that until God shows you something else. Whether that's a job, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a family dynamic, whatever it is. That's why I don't believe on people double dipping and turning the block, circling the block rather, on a situation if God didn't tell you to. When have you ever seen God like, you know what, go back and make that work with such and such? Go back. Now, everybody's situation is different, but typically what God is telling you to go back for is to free other people like Moses, free other people like Harriet Tubman, free other people, not to put yourself back in bondage thinking that's going to be different. I am on one if you have not identified. The way that I am feeling is like we need to get to a place that we're not playing no more. We're not playing no more. God is going to keep his word. He's going to bless us. He's going to give us abundance. He's going to give us the desires of our hearts if it aligns to his perfect will for our lives. He's going to give us these things. We don't have to beg for it. We don't have to be grimy for it. We don't have to scam for it. We need to stand in integrity when these opportunities come to pass. Because every opportunity is not on a silver platter. Sometimes opportunities come at the most opportune time where you're like, bruh, if you would have come 3 years ago, 3 months ago, 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have had this kind of heart. But now that I'm in this situation, now that I'm in the trenches, now that I'm really in the basement of the situation, I'm at the gutter of it, I'm kind of considering stepping outside of integrity. I'm kind of considering, doing it the world's way. And it's like, if you waited that long for God to bless you, why would you mess it up so fast? If you waited that long for the marriage, if you waited that long for the baby, if you waited that long for this tax bracket, then why would you mess it up so quickly? That's disheartening to me. And I understand that there's an element of human behavior. But I also understand that we have the opportunity to say no to some stuff. If it doesn't look like we are carrying the image of God. If it looks like we are veering off of what God said, of what God promised and how God would have done it, then sometimes we need to be brave enough to say, I don't think this is my path. I don't think this is my person. I don't think this is my position. I don't think this is my property. I don't think that this is my purchase. And be able to walk away from it. You know how gangster that is? To be like, God, if it don't look like you, I'm not going in there. If it don't look like you, I don't care how pretty it is, I'm not interested. This is starting to feel like a very wilderness situation. And I'm glad Jesus was able to say no. And so that we could have a better life in this broken world. But you know what? I'm going to have to cut and paste from Jesus. I'm going to have to say, nah. We're just going to have to do some of that because every opportunity is not an opportunity. Every bright idea is not a God idea. Everything that you brainstorm didn't come from the Father. So you need to stop sometimes and be like, time out. I'm willing to get off this path before I do anything that looks like I'm flirting with integrity, not being in the chat. Period. No other grammar or a punctuation needed. And this is coming from me reading about Abram. Let's just get to the chase because I feel some kind of way. I done messed around and read me some Genesis 12 NLT version. And this has caused, this has caused the crunkness that you're hearing. This is the source of the nuck for my bug. I read this and I said, Abram, what happened? Because I don't have the knowing, the understanding, or the clarity to be able to back you in what you just did. We're going to read from verse 1 because what other verse are we going to read from? Let's start from verse 1. The Lord had said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. 2. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. 3. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. 4. So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. 5. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all his wealth. Pause. Remember that. All his wealth. Okay? Resume. His livestock and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, 6, Abram traveled through the land as far as Shechem. There he set up camp beside the oak of Moreh. At that time, the area was inhabited by Canaanites. Pause. Okay. You done heard a word from God. You done heard a promise from God. You done bought people. God didn't tell you to bring all those people, but God bless you. That's what you did. So it's between you and him. And you didn't go empty-handed. You had some wealth. You had some livestock. You had all the things. Okay, great. And you had some of the wisdom to know how to set up shop, how to set up camp when you're not at home. So you have everything that you need. If we zoom out, you have everything that you need. You have community. You have resources. You have knowledge of how to go ahead and produce shelter and things of that nature. And you got the promise of God, which is the only reason why you're outside of your father's house for the first time in your life to begin with. You have everything you need. Let's see how you manage that. Continue. 7. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I will give this land to your descendants. And Abram built an altar there and dedicated it to the Lord who had appeared to him. 8. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill country with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated it to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord there. 9. Then Abram continued traveling south by stages toward the Negev. Pause. So you done built 2 homes so far, sir. Okay. You done built 2 altars so far, sir. Okay. You're moving, you're grooving, you're flowing with God. Shouts out to you, hand clap of praise. Let's see if this continues. Resume. 10. At that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. Pause. That's the thing about when God calls you. There's always going to be opposition in the queue. There's always going to be something that comes against what God was trying to do. You then need to have enough of God in you, enough of a clear line of communication with God to be able to go back to see what your next step should be. There is always going to be, you think that when Jesus told the disciples, let's get in the boat and get to the other side, that they would have experienced such a storm had they just stayed on land? It is something about when God calls you, the enemy knows I cannot take this from them. I cannot go ahead and snatch this promise from their life because it's already been written. And the Bible is clear that when God speaks a word, it will not come back void. And so at this point, we know that if they keep moving in the direction that God said, if they keep being obedient to whatever God instructed them to do, that they're going to go ahead and mess around and get this blessing. They're going to mess around and get this promise. And so what does the enemy do? He sends opposition, something that would just make you kind of question, did God call? Did God say to go this way? Should I continue to even pursue this? Should I even? And what the opposition most likely does is one or two things. It forces you to believe in God in a different way, or it forces you to explore a different path so that you can keep God's promise for your life. There is no other third option. It either forces you, I'll say it again because I felt it in the Holy Spirit. It either forces you to A, believe in God in a different way. Shouts out to the Israelites for being like, we at the edge of the Red Sea. It ain't nowhere else for us to move, sir. So you said to keep moving. So what we supposed to do? Yup. And then that's when God goes ahead and splits the Red Sea. Do you believe in God now that he will move heaven and earth on your behalf? Do you believe that God will defy gravity for your sake? Do you believe that God will split an ocean and make the ground dry on your behalf? Do you believe that? Now you got to believe him in another way. And then the second thing that the opposition does is it forces you to then say, if this is not the way that looks like it speaks God's promise, then we're going to choose another route. So if that job didn't work, then guess what? God didn't forget that he promised you what he promised you. If that entrepreneur lane didn't work, guess what? God didn't forget. Maybe it's just not selling that. Maybe it's selling this. Maybe it's not selling there. Maybe it's selling over here. Maybe it's just not selling with them. Maybe it's selling with them over there. It's something that you just need to tweak a little bit, but the promise didn't change. The promise did not change. But the path is always up for debate. It's always up for change. It's always up for, we can navigate the path as many times as we need to. We will never do anything that will subject ourselves to looking at the promise in a skewed way. Let's continue. Resuming at 10 again. At that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. Pause. The famine should never force you outside of God's will, but it can force you in a different direction. Let's see what happens after that. 11. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, look, you are a very beautiful woman. 12. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Let's kill him. Then we can have her. 13. So please tell them you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you. Pause. This is where I get a little bit sweaty under the pits. This is where an extra layer of deodorant will be most beneficial because I'm finna go in. Listen to me. Abram has the gift of the prophetic. How do I know? Because he's foreseeing something that didn't even take place. He's foreseeing something that he's never had to deal with. And so at this point, sir, how you know? Matter of fact, let's not even question how you know. The real question is, what are you going to do with the information you were given? That is the entire reason for the prophetic gift. It's not for you to just know, oh, watch, they're going to go ahead and fire such and such. Look, see, I told you. God didn't give you that gift for you to have a I told you spirit. God gave you that gift so that you can have a heart to prepare or help people to prepare for whatever it is that you have seen in the prophetic gifting. Why are you just sitting back and watching as if this is a soap opera that you already have, future access and a little bit of a snippet to? God didn't give you this inside scoop, this future glimpse for you to just sit back and do nothing with it. How are you helping the people? How are you helping yourself? How are you helping the generation? How are you helping with this gift? And so here Abram is like, listen, I already know what's about to happen. Awesome. So glad. What are you getting ready to do with that? Be stingy with it. How do we know that he's getting ready to be stingy? Because verse 13 says, so please tell them you are my sister. Listen to the verbiage. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you. Time out. But we read, hold on now. Hold on now. In verse 5, it said, when you left your father's house, Abram, it said in verse 5, you took your wife, Sarai, your nephew Lot, all your wealth, your livestock, and all the people he had taken into his household at Haran. But then when we get to verse 13, it seemed like the only person you interested in sparing and making sure they good is yourself. What happened? So forget Lot, and that's blood. That's your nephew. So forget nephew. Forget this livestock real quick. Forget all these people that I done convinced to come with me. I'm looking out for self. That's what you did with this opportunity, Abram. That's what you did with this prophetic gifting. You said, how can I make life better for me and forget everybody else, even if it means pimping out my wife? You literally are okay with making Sarai concubine 674 just so that you can be well off? At this point, pause. If the options look like something that's probably not going to allow you to sleep good for several nights consecutively, let's just pause. And let's look at, how did we get here? Let's trace it back a little bit. We're here because there's a famine. We're only experiencing a famine because we were traveling to where God said he would show us. We're only traveling because God called me out of my father's house. So pretty much we're here because God called me to be here. Okay, so pause. God, real quick, you busy? Okay, good. I didn't just want to barge in. What do we do? Because at this point, I don't have no bright ideas outside of pimping out Sarai. What do we do? How about just going back to the source? How about not using your bright idea because it don't seem like it's bright? Huh? Your dim idea, sir, is dumb. At this point, can we go ahead and do something different? How do I know that Abram had the gift of the prophetic? You want me to read one more verse? Sure. Verse 14. And sure enough, when Abram arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarai's beauty. 15. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king, and Sarai was taken into his palace. 16. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. Pause. So you knew it was going to happen, and you let it happen. You didn't ask God to intervene. You didn't ask Sarah, how does she feel about being pimped out real quick? You didn't ask the servants, what should I do as a man? I'm scared, low-key. I ain't never been in this situation, and I hate for y'all to see me like this. You didn't even ask Lot real quick, do you want to go back home? Because it don't look like I have enough food for you. High-key, low-key. You didn't consider anyone else. You didn't even consider God. God, do you want your daughter to be pimped out? God, do you want us to go ahead and go down here? Because I didn't really get a real solid, strong GPS flow from you. You just said you're going to take me where you had in mind. And so I'm going to ask you, if this is what you had in mind, this is the only thing that's coming to mind, is to go ahead and pimp out Sarai at this time. So can you just Can you confirm that this is still the route, sir? God was angry about that. He was angry about that. How do I know? Let's keep reading. Verse 17. But the Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Abram's wife. 18. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and accused him sharply. What have you done to me? He demanded. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? 19. Why did you say she is my sister and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here. 20. Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abram out of the country along with his wife and all of his possessions. Why did you allow him to take her as his wife? That means that he did something with Sarai. All because you were looking out for self. All because, and what happens when you botch opportunities by eliminating the opportunity to have integrity? What happens? People suffer behind that, dog. People suffer. God is not pleased. He's not going to override your free will and say, no, don't do that. That's somebody else's wife. No, don't do that. That's somebody else's money. No, don't do that. You know, that person is gullible, so they're believing everything that you're saying. Don't take advantage of them. No, don't date her until you can't date her no more, knowing that you're not going to marry her. No, don't keep him in the friend zone and be jealous when he gets other people just because you don't want to be with him, but you know he's a good man. No, stop doing that. When you do things that look like it is surrounded and supported to make sure that self is good, other people suffer. It's not fair. And for the first time in my life, I looked at Abram and I said, there was no other option. You done set up camp in two different places. Yeah, the famine may have forced you to maneuver a little faster than usual, go down to different places that you haven't been to. But the Bible says that you used to be in Egypt. You lived there as a foreigner. So you know some of this map. You know some of this area. If that was your past, you have some of the coordinates. So maybe since you knew how the people of Egypt are, if you knew how Pharaoh could be, then maybe use some of that for your advantage. Maybe possibly take a page out of Gideon's book. Don't travel in the daytime where they're going to see Sarah. Travel at night. Maybe wrap her up. I don't know what the custom is, but make sure they only see her eyes real quick. She gonna have to wear something baggy if she's thick. We gonna have to make sure they don't see all them curves. Okay, great. They're gonna get a little bit skirt, and they're gonna, so let's go ahead and cover her up. Let there be some decency. There's a whole bunch of servants in there. Maybe dress her as the dude. Maybe not have it that she's the only female that you're traveling with. Let it just be. It's just us, the boys, and Lot. Is there any way that you could have kept the integrity of Sarai, her body, your marriage to her, your commitment to her, your covenant with her? Is there any way you could have kept that intact and still traveled through Egypt? This is what I want us to go ahead and really consider, because we're living in a time that the integrity, it doesn't follow opportunities, and people are willing to just steal, kill, destroy. It's sounding real demonic. Stealing from people, destroying other people's households, rebuke that in the name of Jesus. Killing people's dreams, gaslighting people, making people think that the carrot that they chasing is really going to be worth it, and you know that it's not, but it benefits you. It's just like, stop. Can we get back to the point that we don't have to choose between an opportunity and integrity? And can we not put the burden on ourselves to figure out what's the best way to go ahead and navigate through this? Sometimes we don't know. And that's the beauty of being human. We don't know. But my challenge to you is, if you know that God led you this far, if you know that God led you to just get out of your comfort zone, then you need to place the burden back on God to show you how to navigate through certain terrain. God, I ain't never been through no famine. How do I navigate through this? God, I ain't never been single for this long. How do I navigate this and still keep integrity and still be an image bearer picture of you. I've never seen this amount of money. I've never had access to this amount of people. I've never had my networking be this whatever. Like, you need to be able to be human enough to see, this will be a great opportunity if I go ahead and lay integrity to the side, but be so strong in character that you like, but I'm not doing it. And if I got to make a decision that doesn't look like integrity is a part of the chat, then I'm just not going to make no decision. And God is going to have to do whatever needs to come of it. I would rather God say, why didn't you move fast enough, than God say, why did you move without integrity? And since we know that God is not going to give us demerits off of speed, then I need to go back to God and make him the ultimate source. You have to tell me where to go. You have to tell me how to maneuver this. You have to tell, because I'm out here because I trusted you and I went on your word. So you're going to have to give me another set of words, because before you spoke to me, there wasn't a famine. And so now I need to get an updated variable. I need to get an updated word. I need to get an updated whatever we're getting ready to do. It needs to be updated. And that's the problem right there. Most people are continuing to travel life with an old word. Most people are continuing to travel life with a expired word. When God originally called Abram, there was no famine. Now that he's navigating through these terrains of what God said he's leading him to, there is now a famine. When a new variable enters the chat, you go back to your creator and say, so what's the new word? Because the promise doesn't change, the path can. The promise never changes, the people can. It doesn't matter. We can go, as I stated before, we can go from riding a bike to getting in a car to getting in a plane to navigating to a boat. But as long as we're clear that the destination is X, Africa, the destination is here. We are over here. And just because we have to maneuver and maybe kind of change up how we're navigating, it does not change the fact that God promised X. And so some of us are trying to force things to remain the same, not realizing that we're changing, and not in a good way. It's changing you instead of you changing to keep your integrity. No, Joseph, if Potiphar's wife now is looking at you kind of crazy, you should have been changing how you maneuvered around her. But it changed you. Yeah, you didn't sleep with her, but you kept just trying to do the same thing, the same way, not factoring in the new variable of like, sir, she has openly asked you to sleep with her now. That changes things. That's a new variable to consider. And so now with the new variable to consider, you need to change how you're maneuvering. The problem is, if we look back, most of us are moving the same without adding the new variable to the chat. When you get a new set of information, that requires the new set of movements. When you know, oh, okay, they're looking to go ahead and do X, and you fit that criteria, now you need to be like, okay, so what's the best way to move? But the one thing you do not do is lay down integrity. It's not your opportunity if you need to do that. It's not your path if you need to do that. It's not your purchase if you need to do that. Do you understand that? And I need us to really, really hone in on this, because we are living in a society and a broken world that is okay with you just doing a little bit of what's wrong to get a little bit of what's right and not being able to sleep at night. And if you get to the place that you can sleep at night, just know that God's angry about what you've done, because he's serious about his people. God didn't like that Abram was like, yeah, sure, she's my sister. You agreed to that. God didn't. He feels some kind of way about that. That's his daughter. You mistreated his daughter, sir. And if you don't know how to treat your wife, at least ask God how to properly steward his daughter, Sarai. You understand? I just really want us to stand firm. I want us to stand firm, because we should be wise enough to know at this point, a house that is not built on a foundation of God's principles and God's promise will never stand. Period. You cannot have peace in a mansion filled with demonic practices. You cannot. And anything that is not God is demonic. We're not even going to try to make it like, well, it could be. No, it's a little bit. It's a little bit of God. Then it's a lot of it that's not. It's either light or it's dark. It's either yes or it's no. It's either God or it's not. Period. And you need to really look at the foundation of what you're building on. Like, how do you even go back to a loving covenant after you've known Pharaoh done touched Sarai? And it's not because she was promiscuous, it's because you pimped her. Like, there's certain things that we shouldn't even have to factor in and feel. But we do it to ourselves to try to self-preserve, and that's selfish. Well, renters do. Well, I'm trying to get this debt down. Yeah, but not like that. Not like that. God gave you this beautiful wife not to be scared that your life is going to be taken, sir. Like, there's just some things it's like, it don't have to be that way. So all in all, what I am saying, consider the opportunities that you're accepting and never, ever allow for integrity not to be a factor. Period. Do we understand? I'm passionate about this thing, and if we don't give up this phone, we're going to be on the phone for another 56 years, because that's how I feel about this. Because I really do feel like that we need to understand that we win when we do it God's way. We're not losing out. We're not missing out. We're not putting ourselves in danger if we don't. Like, no, we still win God's way. He's still a promise keeper. He's still the Alpha and the Omega. He still is the one that when he speaks, his word doesn't come back void. He's the one that when he speaks, creation has to obey. We're just the ones that have free will. Like, it's still very much that. He's still on the throne. And so you don't have to walk in a lack of integrity to get the promise that he created. He created it. You don't need to do anything to try to put blemishes on it. It's hard enough being human. Try not to be God. Let God tell you the path. Let God tell you the place. Let God tell you the person. It's hard enough being human. You don't need to consider that. You just need to walk out obedience to what he told you. That's your coordinates. I don't want us to lose, man. That's where this is coming from. That's where this passion is coming from. I don't want us to lose. And I don't want us losing in a way that looks like if you just would have chosen integrity, you would have seen that God already had it worked out. I don't want us to see that. He already had it worked out, Abram. You should have known that from when he led you. But if you had a brief moment of, character lapse, do the bare minimum that we weren't able to do since we've been talking. Ask a question. God, you want me to do this? Because this is what I'm getting ready to do. I don't have any of the ideas. I don't want us to lose. I don't want us to lose. And integrity is it's not easy to keep. But real talk is not an option. People suffer when we don't walk in that. Ourselves and others included. Read you some Genesis 12, and I pray that you read it with the heart that I'm giving you. People suffer when integrity is removed from the chat. Do you understand that? All right, listen, I feel like you got what you needed. You know what these conversations are, though, right? They are life-provoking conversations that not the average person's going to have with you, but who? Your favorite homegirl. I'm full. I'm full, but more so I'm hopeful that we would truly choose God's way, knowing that it's the best way. And that's what I'm going to send you off with. I'm not going to send in the Mr. Greatness because you got seeds to sow and YouTube videos to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and let me go. We'll talk later. All right. Later.